Fazeer Rojan, he's a host of Prabhat Morning Drive, dude, and we are so used to the motivation, to the inspirational quotes, the stories, the warm morning vibes, but he's also a mediapreneur. Is that it? Mediapreneur.
Yeah. Mediapreneur. It's the new trending terminology for an entrepreneur who is on digital platforms. Mm-hmm. So some call it a digipreneur and some call it a mediapreneur. But mediapreneur applies if you are also involved in traditional media platforms.
A mediapreneur.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, I like it. Mediapreneur. Alrighty. And, of course, we all know of, well, some of us, and maybe you're just switching on, maybe you've never seen this or heard about FuzzE Events and Edutainment Limited. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's an edutainment company. And I'll tell you the short version is that it was born from the fact that I have always had a penchant for have always been taught that when you open your mouth to speak, people should walk away with some value. Now that doesn't always mean that you have to always give people hard information. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we could share laughter, we could share light content, that sort of stuff. And I was a bit peeved at the fact, and continue to be peeved at the fact, that all of our quote-unquote influencers or digital influencers are folks who are either trying to be comedians, TikTok dancers, or just generally pop culture things that add no value. There's nothing other than a laugh in the moment. You're not walking away with any information. You're not any better a person for having consumed that media. So I wanted to start producing content that you could learn something from, even if it's not hard information or that offered a different perspective. So our motto is inspire, educate, challenge, because if we're not inspiring you, educating you, we hope then to at least be able to challenge a long-held belief, perspective, or even the status quo for that matter. So it's an edutainment company, which means edutainment is simply education through entertainment. So we're trying to find entertaining ways to educate on hard subject matters.
How long have you been doing this?
It started on radio since forever and a day. So basically this is just a transfer to digital platforms, and we started the company really in 2017. Right. Yeah, so we started off with a couple series, some of which are already known. The first thing we actually started with was something called Fact About Hinduism, and it was myself as a Muslim and another guy who was a Christian. We were working on a series aimed at Christians and non-Muslims, non-Hindus altogether, to try to educate them on Hinduism. Now, the reason for that is we believe that, when we don't understand one another, when we don't have some sort of, when we don't have an appreciation, that's where I think the rigidity and the closed-mindedness and the bigotry and the racism and everything stems from. So, we just really wanted to start there. And the reason for starting there was because that was the time that the company was launched. It was in the lead up to Diwali. So we wanted to let people know, what this was all about, but not talk to you from the typical way that a Hindu would talk to you, but let's find out what are the questions, the burning questions that non-Hindus had. And so we took those questions and we went, because me now having an understanding that, not all Hindus are the same, because you have people who belong to different sects. You might get a different opinion from a Sanatan Dharma person versus a Vedic. So we took the same question and we asked the same question 3 times. We asked it to 2 Sanatan Dharma Pandits. We asked it to Swami Prakashananda from the Chinmaya Mission, and we asked it to Sri Ravi Bharati, who is non-aligned, in terms of institutions and that sort of stuff. And what was amazing was that for the most part we got similar answers to all the questions, but there were a few major ones where you could tell that all 3 either disagreed or had very, very vastly different perspectives. And that was an eye-opener. Surprisingly so, not just for the non-Hindus, but even for many Hindus who were looking on at this series. So that's where we started, really. And from there, we went and started to tackle a feature called Iftar Insights. Mm-hmm. And we positioned it where it would have been about food. So the title was Iftar. The Iftar is the meal that breaks the fast, right? So it's supposed to be about food, but it's really not. What we were doing was showing how even in Trinidad and Tobago, when you think you interact with a Muslim and all Muslims are the same, that's actually not the case. Every Muslim and every mosque operates based on the culture of that community. And even though the rules we all operate by the same rules, every single group had different ways of interpreting that and thereafter engaging with it, doing the thing. Every different group had a different. So, for instance, some groups would say prayers before they broke the fast, and they had like this long 45-minute function, in doing a whole bunch of stuff. Other people would sit and do children's things. Other people would be personal worship. Some people would be community worship. And every single masjid had I think that may have been mine. Every single masjid had a different culture, and that was really incredible. So even for me as a Muslim, it was a learning experience, it was a learning curve. And other than that, we've got a feature called Hiking with Hannah. Yeah. We basically are trying with that one to encourage teenagers and young adults to start discovering the world outdoors, because the problem that feature seeks to solve is that you have so many youngsters who are just glued to their phones. So we're hoping that by taking a teenager, instead of an adult trying to tell the kids, come outside, go outside, do something, we put a teenager who was not too inclined to the outdoors herself. So it's not like she had a one-up on them. And she admitted at the start, hey, listen, I'm just a regular teenager. I have a lot of fears. I'm afraid of the bush. I'm afraid of snakes. But I'm doing it because I have a sense of adventure. So she went out there, she started, and the series has become quite popular. Her first video went viral. That was the Bunsey Trace Mud Volcano. The only challenge we have with that is working within her schedule as a student.
A young person, yes.
And that has brought us full circle now to Trini Inspiration, which is what we hear about.
Right. Well, the title is self-explanatory, but I have to ask, what's the inspiration behind Trini Inspiration? Because I can understand why you're doing the hiking, and I have a better understanding of what you did with Hinduism and Iftar Insights, and generally what you're doing with FuzzE Events and Edutainment Limited. But Trini Inspiration, it sounds simple, but there must be something that really pushed you towards zooming in on that.
When you look at American television, you always hear that people are clamoring for more representation. People want to see themselves on screen. And Trinidad and Tobago, especially in the aftermath of an election, this year 2020, and in the aftermath of the election of 2015 in particular, those two elections have been pretty divisive. Whether the elections themselves were divisive or the response of the people was divisive, it really laid bare the fact that Trinidad and Tobago is no longer the paradise islands that we used to describe it as. We're not that rainbow country anymore, because somewhere along the line we've forgotten our watchwords of discipline, tolerance, and production. There's no tolerance anymore. People believe what they believe, and they are upset with you if you believe something else, and they call you, and the venom and everything else was laid bare to be seen. So how do we counter that? And that was the question that we had that really birthed Trini Inspiration. How do we counter that? We counter that by showing people that there is also inspiration to be had here in Trinidad and Tobago. There are people who are doing remarkable things, and that is worthy of and has the capacity to inspire a nation. So we are trying literally to inspire a nation one story at a time, but we are using our own inspiration right here in Trinidad and Tobago. We want to see ourselves on screen. We want to put our own people on screen, and we want to source our own inspiration from Trinis. We don't need to go anywhere outside of here, and we don't need to go behind celebrities. Like, the program is not like a star-studded thing where we're inviting celebrities, because their stories have already been told. We're actually trying to get the stories from folks who have not yet told their stories, Our first 4 episodes have already been produced. Our first episode launched last week, and this week, today at 3 o'clock, the second episode will premiere. And basically, the point of today is just to ask folks to check it out. If you feel that you would like to be inspired, you would like to start sharing some positivity, engage in some positive, consume some positive media for a change. Last week, we told the story of a couple by the name of Rendelina Reviews. They're married for 4 years now, and they like to eat, so they started just going out eating. Whilst eating, they started recording their food and their stories. And what was interesting is the fact that the guy, his mother had a food business, but he was not able to help her market her business. She has since passed, and he started using the vlog to do for other people what he couldn't do for his mother. So he's trying to help people sell their food, sell their product, but he reviews everything first, and he makes sure that his credibility is never compromised. And they're using food to inspire people to break down. They're using food to connect people. So we all agree, whether you're Muslim, Hindu, Christian, African, Indian, or Chinese, or anything else, we could all agree that the molasses bread from Dove's Dirt Oven in Guaya tastes real best. The sponge cake is the best thing in the world. We could all agree on that. We could all agree that this tastes good, that tastes good. We could all agree that, hey, listen, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but I want to go check out the desserts that are now being sold on the cross. Nobody was selling dessert on the cross before. So he's not just they're not just inspiring people, but they also found a very creative way to spur on economic activity in the food industry in the middle of a pandemic, which is no easy feat. A government agency would have probably spent millions of dollars to try to do that, and they've been doing it with one video production a day at a time, because they put out a video every single day now.
Are these stories or COVID-19 related? Because I imagine that you have a lot of people in need of inspiration, especially during this time.
They're not all COVID-19 related, but they do have an element of COVID-19 content or subject matter, because obviously they're not tone deaf, you know. And I will just fast forward to our fourth episode, which will come in 2 weeks from now. We actually interviewed Stefan Jaikaran. Many folks would know Stefan Jaikaran as a singer and an entertainer, but Stefan was, and the story has not been told us yet, Stefan was actually in India at the height of the pandemic. He spent 104 days in what he described as a jail. He was in the university, they couldn't leave, they couldn't do anything. He said literally he was confined to a space, you know, just 4 walls for 104 days. And he went on to tell the story of the toll that took on him mentally, how it affected his relationships, etc. And then how he felt as a Trinidadian stuck abroad, trying to make his way back home, and the way that he was treated, the way that, you know, the mannerism in which he was met when he arrived in Trinidad, how he was treated here, you know, and it's really something. It paints a different picture. I don't think that story has been told before, really, per se, but Stefan went into great detail to tell that story. So even when we interview Stefan, we're not talking to Stefan Jaikaran about music or entertainment or anything like that. We're talking to him about something more. So even artists who have never really gotten a chance to tell their story of substance, you know, that's what we're trying to get. We want to go beyond the headline to get that. Our story today, that premieres at 3 o'clock, is a story of a young lady who wears the hijab and has been breaking every stereotype that you as a non-Muslim, and even I as a Muslim, may have had about Muslim women. When you think about a Muslim woman hijab, you may automatically think like, okay, so she's conservative, or maybe, you know, it comes with all of these stereotypes. And she is saying, hey, no, listen, there's nothing that this hijab prevents me from doing. She has created a network of support for women folk. It started initially with Muslim women, and now it has expanded into so much more. And they now have a sport and fitness community that starts with their motto is to help women to be the best version of themselves. It's not about fitness. It's not about you could join the group and never exercise ever if you don't ever want to do that, right? But it's
good to me.
It's about women supporting women in that regard, and it has grown into something much more than they would have ever imagined, you know. And the way that story started is really the one that's going to tug at your heartstrings, because her little son just looked at her and said, Mom, why are you not taking care of yourself? Because I want you to live for long so that you could be my mommy for longer. And this is like a 9-year-old boy saying this to his mother. So imagine the effect that had on her, you know. And it's I think there's so many incredible stories, and
how
we just want to tell them.
How do you get your guests? How do they find you, or you find them?
I have been fortunate enough to find them because I pay attention to the social circuits, and I think that I also try to go in my own personal conversations, go beyond the headlines with folks. So, you know, it's you know, it's.
How does this help you?
How does this help me?
Yeah, doing all of this work. How does this help you as a person, not as a media person, a mediapreneur, or the manager of FuzzE events, the director of FuzzE events? How does this help you?
Chadwick Boseman, in one of his more acclaimed speeches now in the aftermath of his passing, was recorded to have said that when he dies, he wants to die with an empty tank, so that every single iota, every ounce of talent that the Lord gave him, he could then face his Lord and say, Lord, I used it. Everything that you gave me potential to do, I used it. And I look on that statement as the ultimate statement of what is our purpose in life. Many of us, when we try to find purpose by saying, okay, so maybe my purpose is to be an attorney or a media practitioner or something, but that's not your purpose. Your purpose is really the amalgamation, the accumulation of everything that you do in every moment and every single day. And all of your talent, the Lord didn't give you all your talent, Karen, to just be on radio. He gave you some of that to be on radio, to be an awesome daughter, to be a kuchipudi dancer. Understand? So it's the amalgamation of all of it. So I want to do everything that I think I have some talent to do and get it all out of me so that when I die, there is nothing left in the tank. I want to die with an empty tank. Mm-hmm. And that's really the goal. Die with an empty tank, because I don't want to be on my deathbed and regret having had the ability or the idea or the capacity to contribute or to be a part of something or do something, and regret it then when I don't have the chance to do it. Yeah. You know? So the dark circles under the eyes,
it's worth it. It's worth it. Okay. All right. So how do we access Trini Inspiration?
It's available on YouTube and Facebook for now. Our website is still under construction. The website was actually supposed to be up since March of this year, and then COVID struck. And even though it's a website, we were trying to design the website from scratch up, like 100% original design and not use a template. Yeah. So that sort of put things on hold a little bit. And so the website is under construction, should be up hopefully by about November or thereabouts. So for now, it's just available on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, FuzzE Events and Entertainment on any of these platforms, and you'll be able to view the material, the content there. And that's pretty much it for the hour.
Quick question though, outside of Trini Inspiration, how important it is for us to be more digitally minded?
It is supremely important. Like COVID has been a blessing for Trinidad in the sense that it has forced us to make digital changes that the rest of the world had already made prior to COVID. You know, I read an article this morning about the way that businesses operates in Sweden and their COVID model in Sweden. And basically what we're doing in Trinidad and Tobago is what they were doing before COVID. So the fact that we have now had to acclimatize and become accustomed to doing some of our business online, the rest of the world, you know, modern world was doing that before COVID. So COVID has forced us to start thinking this way. And if COVID doesn't make you start thinking digital, then you really are the definition. And this is a hard truth to swallow, but you really are the definition of that person who resists change, because this is inevitable. It really, really is inevitable. Everything that you do, you have to start thinking digital first before anything else. The days of brick and mortar are long gone. You know, it's long gone. So everything now has to move into digital platforms.
All right. Yeah. So inspire, educate, and challenge. And we've learned 2 words today: mediapreneur and edutainment. I feel like 100 years old. I feel like brick and mortars.
Yeah.
Mediapreneur and edutainment. This is awesome stuff. So Trini Inspiration on YouTube channel, Instagram, just search FuzzE Events and Entertainment Limited. And of course, you can catch him live Mondays to Fridays, 6 in the morning drive, host of Prabhat Fazeer. It's been a pleasure chatting with you on this level.